Because it's used in so many ways, and because it's so searing, and because of late it's been used so often, one word in America deserves definition. That word is racist. Let me try to define racist. I have 7 different definitions, from the very benign, call that level 7, down to level 1. And I believe only one of these is pernicious. So hear me out. Level 7. A person who literally does not even notice differences in skin color. Now, this person is probably blind, or maybe this is a person who somehow is sighted and literally doesn't distinguish differences. Next level, somebody who does notice, but to her or him, it's meaningless. Okay? The meanings of the color of one's skin are no different than on your kitchen wall, whether you have beige or mahogany or walnut. The third level, actually I'd call it level 5, is somebody who does notice, and it is meaningful, but the differences are not negative. It's differences like blacks, more so than whites, are more religious, or blacks, more so than whites, are more musical. Okay? Different, no hint of better or worse within them. And in any case, it's overwhelmed by the individual. So even if on the whole there is one group that might have tendencies one way, this person sees the individual as paramount. I think that's the most common American attitude, that individual merit is relevant, race is not. A fourth level, someone who recognizes that there are group differences and they do include negatives, but it's fact-based, and the negatives are often cited to overcome, like noticing that blacks hold fewer PhDs. Okay? That doesn't mean negative about any one person or even the group, but it's different and it's unfortunate, and these people might want to try and help that group to get a percentage of equality among PhD holders. The next one, I'll call it level 3 down to 1. People who have affirmative racism, and it goes in favor of the underdog. They would like to help the inequalities go away. It might start with little niceties, and I practice one of these. I do feel better when somebody's coming out of a parking lot, driving onto the street where I'm stopped. I actually would like to give way more often to the African American driver than anybody else. Little nicety. There are big niceties. There are big niceties where there might be a sacrifice of job for one versus another. And I do think people should recognize that suburban America over the last 40 years, whites have, with little to no complaint, sacrificed their kids' places in colleges. It's very well known that there are spots in colleges that if it were on complete numbers, GPA and SAT scores, there wouldn't be as many for what we call underprivileged minorities, and we willingly give that up for a better integration on college campuses. All right, number 2, this is getting close to pernicious. You decide whether this is. Whites who do not want to see blacks succeed. They might think less of blacks, but they don't express it. They don't make any impediments. They thus cause no harm. So in their minds only, there is a racism. I'm not sure if that is pernicious. When you start speaking even to other whites about some sort of inferiority or desire to do harm, that would be harmful because word gets out, and that would be hurtful. And that brings us to the number 1. The lowest form, the pernicious racism, where somebody says or does things to harm blacks because of their race. Now, please still distinguish something called disparate impact that doesn't make differences because of their race, even though differences result. So, a white human resources director who now says, we at our company need to only hire PhDs for certain positions, and may actually recognize that blacks hold percentage-wise fewer PhDs. That policy has a disparate impact. It does make fewer spots available per capita to African Americans. But that's not necessarily race-based. They are basing it on some desire for a level, a threshold that anyone can still achieve. Okay, African Americans are not barred from getting PhDs. History has held it in fewer numbers, but they're not barred from it. And more importantly, black and white is not inherently associated with earning a PhD or not. Here's another, a police force who say, we're going to go lenient on powdered cocaine users that we bust, but we're not lenient on other illegal drugs. Now, the impact is harsher on African Americans. They are dealing in those drugs more. They are using those drugs more than suburban white kids who are putting coke up their nose. Now, is that racist? Maybe, but I think you have to look at the circumstances, and it may just be classist, that we don't want people that we know, maybe our even family members, our sons and daughters who've gotten out of line, we don't want to see them behind bars for 5 years. That's still not racist, even though the impact ends up probably hurting African Americans more than white Americans. So context is a big deal. And when you dig down to find an organization, and frankly, in corporate America, I don't think there's been a corporate national organization in 30 years that is the level 1 racist. Some individuals still, probably. Some small corporations, maybe in pockets of especially the South still. But please be so circumspect when using the term racist or racism, because it should be searing. It is evil if it's pernicious racism the way I've defined it, and the way I think should be defined. This should be used where it exists so that we really can fight it. If everything or almost every action that causes disparate impact is considered racist, then there's almost nothing that's pure. Robin DiAngelo, pretty much with her expanded definition of racist, she calls herself a racist. Everyone's a racist. So then it becomes meaningless. Make it meaningful by using the term correctly and then fighting it where it still exists. I'm Mark Stewart.